All right, so we've got this third grade science chapter all about living and non-living things. And we're going to try to help a third grader really grasp this concept.
Okay.
Um, and, maybe we'll even learn something to do ourselves along the way.
Sounds good.
It's pretty amazing how even these seemingly simple ideas can spark some really interesting questions.
Yeah, I think what's so fascinating about this chapter is how it breaks down these complex concepts into bite-sized pieces, perfect for these young minds.
Right.
It starts with like these super clear definitions, living things are the ones that have life.
Okay.
Like us animals, plants.
Right.
And non-living things just don't have that.
Got it.
So think of it this way, like a sunflower, dancing in the wind, that's a living thing.
Right.
Like a shiny new bicycle, even though it's awesome, it's not alive.
Totally. And it doesn't just stop at definitions, right?
No.
It jumps right into these cool characteristics that make something living.
Exactly.
And first up, movement.
Yes.
I love how they use plants as an example because it's not always obvious how they're moving.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It might not be like running a marathon, but they are definitely grooving in their own way.
Yeah, you got those roots, reaching down for a nice cool drink of water.
Yeah.
The sunflowers, they're always like twisting to catch those golden rays.
Yeah.
Even the mimosa plant, like folds its leaves when you touch it, like it's shy or something. That's all movement.
It is.
And it's such a great way to show a third grader that life is full of surprises.
Right.
Even in those things that seem still at first.
It's like a secret dance party happening in the garden.
I love that.
That's a big difference between living and non-living things, right?
Huge.
My bike's not going to start doing the cha-cha.
Exactly.
All on its own. I got to pedal.
Exactly. Now, along with their fancy dance moves, all living things need fuel.
Yeah.
Just like our bikes need gasoline. The chapter highlights how living things need food and water.
Okay.
Food gives them energy to grow to play.
Okay.
And water keeps everything running smoothly.
Okay, but plants don't have, like, mouths to eat or anything.
Right.
How do they get their food?
That's where things get super interesting.
Okay.
Plants are like mini chefs.
Okay.
They whip up their own food.
What?
Using sunlight, air, and water.
Oh.
It's like magic, except it's science.
So cool.
They make this sugary treat called glucose.
Okay.
That fuels their growth and all those cool movements we talked about.
So plants are basically solar-powered sugar factories.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
I know, right?
And it reminds me of another characteristic. The chapter covers growth.
Yes.
It's like watching a time-lapse video of a tiny seed becoming this towering tree.
I know.
Or a little chick transforming into this majestic hen.
It's incredible.
And that's a key difference between living and non-living things, right?
Yes.
My toy car,
Mm-hmm.
it might be my favorite,
Yeah.
but it's going to stay the same size.
Exactly.
Living things are constantly changing, growing, developing.
Right.
It's a reminder that life is all about transformation.
It really is.
Speaking of change, the chapter also talks about the ability to feel.
Yeah.
We experience the world through our senses, touch, taste, smell, sight, and sound.
Right.
It's how we know if something's hot or cold, sweet or sour, smooth or rough.
Exactly. And animals have their own amazing ways of feeling.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine a dog sniffing out like a delicious treat.
Oh.
Or a cat, using its whiskers to
Right.
navigate in the dark.
Yeah.
Even insects have super senses.
What?
Those antennas aren't just for show. They're like these extra feelers helping them explore the world.
That's so cool.
Oh, I know.
And remember that mimosa plant that, like, folds its leaves when you touch it?
Yes.
That's a pretty clear sign that plants can feel too, right?
Absolutely, even if it's different from
Yeah.
the way we feel. This chapter does a great job of showing that feeling can take many forms in the living world, and it's all about responding to the environment around them.
Okay, now here's something I remember being fascinated by as a kid, breathing.
Okay.
It seems so simple. We do it all the time
Right.
without even thinking about it. But the chapter explains that it's actually a super important process for all living things.
Oh, you're so right. Breathing is essential.
Yeah.
It's how our bodies take in oxygen,
Yeah.
which is like the fuel that powers our cells.
Yeah.
It's what allows us to run, jump, play, even think.
Wow.
And just like with movement, different organisms have developed unique ways to breathe.
Yeah, the chapter does a great job of highlighting the variety.
Right.
Humans and most animals, we use lungs. Fish They use gills to breathe underwater.
Yes.
And plants even have these tiny holes in their leaves called stomata
Yes.
to exchange gases.
Yeah.
Who knew there were so many ways to breathe?
I know, right? And here's a fun fact for your third grader.
Okay.
Insects, they breathe through tiny holes called spiracles.
Wow.
Located along their bodies. It's like having noses all over.
That's why.
It's these little details that can really make science come alive for these young learners.
Absolutely. Okay, last but not least, the chapter talks about reproduction.
Uh-huh.
The incredible ability of living things to create more of themselves.
Yes.
It's like nature's way of saying,
Yeah.
let's keep this party going.
It's a beautiful cycle of life.
Yeah.
The chapter gives examples that are really easy for a third grader to understand.
Okay.
Humans having babies,
Okay.
cows giving birth to calves,
Right.
birds laying eggs, plants growing from seeds.
Okay.
You know, each species has its own unique way of making sure that their kind continues.
It's like passing the torch of life
Exactly.
from one generation to the next.
Precisely. Now, before we move on,
Yeah.
did you notice how the chapter focuses on examples that are really familiar
Okay.
to a third grader's world?
Like what?
Like they use everyday observation.
Like watching a pet dog grow
Right.
or seeing a bird build a nest,
Yeah.
to illustrate these complex scientific concepts.
You're right. It's all about making these ideas relatable and engaging for these young minds.
And that's what makes this chapter so effective.
Yeah.
It sparks curiosity and it lays this really solid foundation
Yeah.
for understanding the wonders of life.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground already.
We have.
I'm feeling pretty energized by all this talk about living things.
Me too?
But I'm curious, what about the flip side?
Okay.
The non-living things.
Yes.
How does the chapter tackle that?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, it takes a pretty clever approach, actually.
Oh, okay.
Instead of listing out all these characteristics,
Right.
it just focuses on, like, the key difference.
Yeah.
Non-living things, they lack that spark of life.
Got it.
They don't eat, breathe, grow, or reproduce.
Uh-huh.
Like, on their own, they just exist.
So it's like if it doesn't do all those things we've been talking about,
Right.
it's probably not alive.
Okay, that's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Perfect for a third grader.
Exactly. And to make it even clearer,
Yeah.
they even include this fun activity where kids can make a list
Oh,
of living and non-living things they find around their house or school.
I remember doing something like that in school.
Oh, yeah.
Like a science scavenger hunt.
Exactly.
You start looking at everything totally
Oh,
differently.
that's so fun.
And speaking of activities,
Yeah.
the chapter also has some really cool experiments.
Yes, it does.
Like that classic one with the two plants?
Okay, yeah.
One sealed in an airtight container.
Right.
One left open.
It's a classic for a reason.
It's a simple but powerful demonstration of how important air is for living things.
Oh, for sure.
You can practically see the plant in the closed container struggling
Yeah.
because it can't breathe.
Right.
It's a really good visual reminder that even though we can't see air,
Right.
it's still essential for life.
Absolutely.
And it's a great way to get kids excited about science.
Oh, totally.
Who wouldn't want to be a mini scientist
I know.
conducting their own experiments?
It's so much fun. The chapter also has those did you know facts.
Oh, yeah.
And those little stories that are super cool.
I was particularly intrigued by the one about biomimicry.
Oh, yeah.
The idea that scientists are inspired by nature
Yeah.
to solve human problems.
That's such a fantastic example
Yeah.
of how science connects to the real world. They even mention how those little packaging sachets that help keep fruits and veggies fresh,
Right.
those were inspired.
Wow.
By the way, plants naturally slow down ripening.
It's like nature's a giant blueprint for innovation.
I love that.
It makes you appreciate how much we can learn from the natural world.
I agree.
And it's a good reminder that science isn't just about textbooks and labs.
Right.
It's happening all around us all the time.
All the time. Speaking of real-world connections,
Yeah.
I really like how the chapter includes a section on the impact of kite flying with sharp thread on birds.
Oh, yeah. That's an interesting one.
It's sensitive,
Yeah.
but it's important for children to understand that even harmless activities
Right.
can have unintended consequences on living things.
It's a good way to foster empathy and responsibility towards the environment.
Totally. After all, we share this planet
Yeah.
with so many amazing creatures,
Right.
and it's up to us to protect them.
And that brings us to, one of the most important aspects of this chapter.
What's that?
It's emphasis on observation.
Yes.
Throughout the text, they're encouraging children
Mm-hmm.
to look closely, ask questions,
Yeah.
and make connections between what they're learning and the world around them.
It's like they're being trained to be these little mini detectives
Wow, I love that.
looking for clues about life.
And the best part is,
Yeah,
we can all do that no matter our age.
absolutely.
Whether it's watching a spider spin a web,
Uh-huh.
noticing the different shapes of leaves,
Yeah,
or even just taking a deep breath and appreciating the air we breathe.
right.
There's always something new to discover about the living world.
Always. And that sense of wonder,
Yeah.
that's what makes learning so exciting.
Exactly. It's not just about memorizing facts.
Right.
It's about understanding that intricate web of life
Yeah.
and our place in it.
You hit the nail on the head, and that's why this chapter,
Yeah.
even though it's aimed at third graders,
Yeah,
holds valuable lessons for learners of all ages.
I agree.
It reminds us that science isn't just a subject in school.
Right.
It's a way of understanding the world around us
Yeah.
and our place within it.
So we've explored the characteristics of living things,
We have.
delved into the world of non-living things,
Yes.
even touched on some real-world applications of science.
Mm-hmm.
But before we wrap up,
Yeah.
I'm curious,
Okay.
what are some of the key takeaways
Okay.
you think a third grader should walk away with after reading this chapter?
I think the biggest one is that life is all around us,
Yeah.
and it's incredibly diverse. You know, from the tiniest insects to the tallest trees,
Mm-hmm.
every living thing plays such a unique role
Right.
in this giant ecosystem.
It's like a giant puzzle
Yeah,
where every single piece is important.
exactly.
And understanding the characteristics of living things
Yeah,
really helps us appreciate how everything fits together.
exactly. And it goes beyond just knowing the facts.
Right.
You know, this chapter really encourages kids to observe, to
Yeah.
ask questions and make connections between what they learn
Uh,
and their own experiences.
right.
You know, it sparks that sense of wonder and curiosity
Yeah.
that's so essential for lifelong learning.
So it's not just about like knowing that plants need sunlight.
Right.
It's about watching a sunflower turn its face towards the sun
Yeah,
and understanding why it does that,
exactly.
making those aha connections.
I love that. And I think another key takeaway is that
Yeah.
science isn't just something you learn in the classroom.
Right.
It's happening all around us all the time.
Yep.
Whether they're watching a bird build a nest,
Uh-huh.
helping their parents bake a cake,
Yeah.
or even breathing in the fresh air.
Right.
You know, there are endless opportunities for kids
Yeah.
to engage with these scientific concepts in their everyday lives.
It's like having a secret decoder ring for the world.
I love that.
And speaking of secrets,
Yeah.
the chapter also touches on the impact humans can have on living things.
Yes, it does.
That example with the kite flying with a sharp thread,
Yes.
it's a good reminder that even seemingly harmless activities can have like unintended consequences.
Absolutely. It's a sensitive topic.
It is.
But it's important to address.
Yeah.
You know, it encourages children to think critically
Mm-hmm.
about their actions
Yeah.
and to consider the well-being of all these other living creatures.
It's all about fostering that sense of responsibility
Yeah,
and stewardship for the planet we share.
absolutely. And that brings us to one final thought.
Okay.
I want to leave you and your third grader with,
Okay. I'm ready to lay it on me.
how do you think understanding the characteristics of living things
Yeah.
can help us make better choices
Okay.
about how we interact with the world around us?
That's a great question. I think it helps us understand,
Yeah.
the delicate balance of nature
Mm-hmm.
and the importance of protecting all living things.
Yes.
It also makes us more aware of the impact our actions can have,
Right.
both positive and negative.
You got it. And that awareness
Yeah.
can empower us to make more informed and compassionate choices.
Right.
Not just for ourselves,
Yeah.
but for all living things.
Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to chew on today,
I agree.
and hopefully they'll have a blast exploring this chapter with their third grader.
Me too.
Who knows? Maybe it'll even spark a lifelong love of science.
I hope so, after all.
Yeah.
There's no greater adventure
Right.
than discovering the wonders of the living world.
Absolutely.
Until next time, happy exploring.